الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله ذي الملك والملكوت ذي العزة والجبروت. الحمد لله حي قيوم لا ينام، عزيز لا يضام، قهار لا يرام. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما. يقول الباري سبحانه وتعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. We who believe fear Allah as He should be feared, and they not except on the state of Islam. For may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most merciful bestow upon us the gift to die on the state of Islam. Allahumma ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Amma ba'd. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describing the state of human being as a state that they have earned with their own deeds and they have earned it with their own hands. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. Allah will not change the condition of people till they change the condition of themselves. And this ayah in Surah Al-Ra'd. And the second ayah we have the same instruction and meaning. قال Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He will not change the gift that He bid or favor that He had bestowed upon people unless they change the condition of themselves. وَمَا كَانَ اللَّهُ مُغَيِّرًا نِعْمَةً أَنْعَمَهَا عَلَى قَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. One of the meaning of this ayat that the believer has to adhere to is the fact that the state that you are in is a state that you have earned with your own deeds, with your own choice. Therefore, whatever level you get to, this is your own work, this is your own deeds, this is your own production, as they say. If someone is on the path of the misguidance, therefore he is on this worst state. Why? Because the state that he's in or she's in is a state who paving for them the road for misery and for the utter loss. But if someone on the path of the guidance, he is on the best state, and is actually this state will be paving for them the path to success. And for the reason, someone saying, whatever state are you talking about? He said, yes. So if you see the state of an ungrateful, despite the fact that his appearance is great, then know that it's bad for them. And your state, if it is go through hardship, despite what you see, the appearance is a hardship, you have to have the certitude that you are on the best state ever. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِنَّ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ يَهْدِي لِلَّتِي هِيَ أَقْوَمُ. This Quran guides to the most upright state. Now, the believer has to have the certainty that whatever state they are in is the best state ever. To the point that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow for you to see your future, to see the unseen, and after examining every other possibilities or options, you will be choosing the state that you are in. Why? Because you are on the path of the guidance of the Quran, not the path of following your own whims, which does not have any foundation. The foundation of the guidance of the Quran is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is the Quran, are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this reason, the one who will not be adhering to this state as being the best of the state ever, they will be truly confronting a lot of challenges in their life. Now, it does not mean that someone will adhere to a status quo, but the state that you are in, it is coupled with the most important gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon us, which is the uprightness, which is the piety. Therefore, regardless whatever you're going through, because if you're going through hardship, then that istiqamah, that uprightness is going to guide you to have patience. If you are going through a state of ease, then the istiqamah is going to guide you to be a state of gratefulness. So you see, regardless of the state that you are in, which is actually reflect the state of your test in this life. Because the life that we live is a life of tribulation. It's a life of trials. So it's not that someone regard the state that they are in, but the regard to embrace it, to accept it, to adhere to it, and to manipulate it, or to treat it and deal with it with the istiqamah that Allah bestow upon you. For this reason, the Prophet ﷺ in hadith, he said, all the matter of the believer is amazing. أمر المؤمن كله خير. وإن ذلك لا يكون إلا للمؤمن. And such a thing only for the believer. Whenever he's afflicted with the trial, hardship, he's proof patience and is good for him. قال وإن أصابته السراء شكر فكان خير له. And if he's, Allah bestow upon him favor, then he will be grateful and is good for them. So in both states, the matter of the believer is amazing and outstanding. Now, to protect and safeguard this state, first, be certain that whatever you are going through is the best state ever. It does not mean that you should feel good because you might be really in a hardship that it hurts. But if you have the option to choose any other life or any other world, if they do exist, you're going to choose back to the state that you are in. He said, Alhamdulillah, that with all the difficulty I'm going through, this is the best state that I have. And this need to be a certainty in the heart of the believer. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling you. So, what is the element really that really spoil or will really destroy this state of peace in the mind by embracing the state that we are in? Is, dear brother, respected sister, is the nature that we have, is the nature of urgency, of haste, of to being hasty. And when the person, subhanAllah, try to correct things, try to get things, in the sense of urgency, in a very, short time, that, subhanAllah, is detrimental and is going to cause, really, the state of a person to be misguided. Why? Say someone, should I not look for something good for myself? So it's not that the point. But this is when the state of hasty or urgency of to have this haste becomes is a character in you. It becomes like a aqidah in you, is a belief that is going to corrupt you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, وَيَدْعُ الْإِنسَانُ بِالشَّرِّ دُعَاءَهُ بِالْخَيْرِ. And you find the human being, they're praying, they're calling upon, having shar, evil, as they do when they are praying for good. وَيَدْعُ here, as you see it in the translation, they say pray. But in the reality, yad'u, he's like seeking aspect they want to have, but in the reality, they think it's good, but it's not good. It's something that is going to cause them a lot of hardship and is going to lead them, wal-'iyadhu billah, to the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So someone, he's hasty to go to the hellfire when he's thinking that he's doing good for themselves. Why this haste is a character and ill character? Why? Because someone when want to do things in search of urgency, want to get happiness now, and everything they wanted to have it now in a short term, the best job, the best thing, they always, subhanAllah, is like state of daydreaming. And this state of daydreaming that they want everything now, when they do not get it, is going to cause them that, subhanAllah, that worrying. And this is what leads to depression and so on. Now the state of haste is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, when you have this state into your character, what is going to lead you only to lead you to evil thing. If you try to analyze it, indeed when you do things in hasty, you are preventing or avoiding for yourself to reflect on the consequences of your choice. Therefore, you are causing a blindness into your insight, and in the same time, you are allowing the shaitan to have a power over you, and then to have, work his cunning against you. And in this situation, what is going to happen? It's going to happen like the hawa, the opinion, the whims, the desire is going to overcome. As when they overcome, then the sense of hasty will become like, subhanAllah, very empowered in the nafs. And then the whole insight is blinded. Therefore, what is guided the person in the dreams as being dictated by the society, which is really leading a person astray. Where he stated that he used to be certain that his end is good, is not anymore, because he's bad. I don't want to be in this state, financially, difficult, or having hardship, or health things. It's like, subhanAllah, someone is like rebelling against their state, which is actually rebelling against the sense of surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this reason, Allah قال وَيَدْعُ الْإِنسَانُ بِالشَّرِّ دُعَاءَهُ بِالْخَيْرِ وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ عَجُولًا. And the human being was ever hasty. This is a nature. This is a nature. But the nature will need to be treated with the guidance. And this ayah, it has been said exactly after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, this Quran guides to the most upright sense. So here when you see the siyaq, or this like the coherence of the ayah, you understand that the best of the way, of course, is the best of the most uprightness, which is guided by the Quran. And what it leads you to the other way is the sense of hasty that we have in ourselves if we do not control it. And this is, subhanAllah, we're talking about this because not only is it important in the Quran, it's important in our life, but the society we live in, the civilization that marked the society, its core, its soul is haste. It's the sense of urgency. It's to how to get the happiness now. It's a philosophy, it becomes a character, it becomes a moral, it becomes a culture. Years ago, if people, they want something, it's going to take time to come in the mail. Now it becomes like 2 days, and then 1 day, and the next day. Now it's like in a few hours you can get it. Why? Because something, subhanAllah, which characterizes the society or the civilization that we live in, or the world that we live in, it's like the happiness or whatever people they desire, the pleasure, can be immediately fulfilled. So the sense of urgency, the sense of being immediate to be done, it's a sense that's being made possible. So how can we make it possible? Yes, because people now, they have been, subhanAllah, adhering to the belief that the sa'adah, the happiness, is materialistic sa'adah. And if it is materialistic, then it is easy to fulfill it. Why? How? By providing all the products that make you happy. Therefore, when you see something, you click on it, and the next hour you'll find it in front of your door, you feel happy. And this is, subhanAllah, what is crawling into our system, this hasty character, it becomes in our aqeedah, it becomes in our akhlaq. So the happiness is fulfilled and is possible. Why? Because this happiness is materialistic happiness, and we live in sense or state of a culture of consumerism, therefore it is possible. But the impact on the believer, that is the thing that we really need to talk about. The impact of the believer is that when we are, subhanAllah, we have the bag of this haste, of this being hasty. It becomes a nature in us, because it's totally normal to live in a society and to be influenced by the society. And what we have mentioned is not haram to be like excited to have the things that you order that make you feel good, like in the next hour in front of your door. But the problem, when it's transferred into your aqeedah, into your sense of belief, it becomes like your ibadah is kind under the control of this character of nature of the haste. Because when you're making dua and the answer is not coming, then you're going to be like giving up, or you're going to be mad, or you're going to be like, in a state like you're like complaining. And this is what is going to lead to that your power, your will, the drive will weaken. Your intention will be spoiled. And that sense of high spirit will be destroyed. And this is all because we allowed that sense of hasty to crawl into our system, and then to really make us to be people going into the path of misguidance without knowing. Then when you think about it and you read the ayah, that what we are looking for, what we are calling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, is actually hasting or being, subhanAllah, making our sense of urgency to get evil thing in our life instead of the good. And we are so excited and so powerful in our dua when, subhanAllah, what we are asking for is not what is going to help us in our akhirah. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. And this is the threat of being in a society where the core and the soul of it is consumerism and based on this sense of haste. Now, how the believer will protect and safeguard ourselves against such a thing? The first thing, dear brother, respected sister, that we need to remind ourselves that the sense of hasty, or to be, hurrying up, speeding, urging things to have it now, is not going to change your destiny, is not going to change your fate. Because no one can do anything except by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, you do not own for yourself any harm or any benefit. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they took, besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, آلهة لا يخلقون شيئا وهم يخلقون ولا يملكون لأنفسهم نفعا ضرا ولا نفعا. They do not own for the God that they worship beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for them no dar, they cannot harm them, and they cannot have any benefit or favor for them. And one of the worst God that has been worshipped other, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is ourselves, our whims, is our nafs. قال ومن أضل ممن اتخذ إلهه هواه. There's more to say than the one who took as his own self, his own whims, his own God. And this is what we live the society of today. What they worship themselves. Selfishness, individualism, and so on. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to have this settled into our heart. وَإِن يَمْسَسْكَ اللَّهُ بِضُرٍّ فَلَا كَاشِفَ لَهُ إِلَّا هُوَ. If any calamity or difficulty touch you, no one can remove it except Allah. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will to touch you with good, no one can stop it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have it for you to be bestowed upon you and will have it to benefit of it. So this is, which is coming back to what we have said, then the state that you are in is the best state ever. So you look forward to your relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit you with whatever you wish to be benefit for, so to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore your state becomes a point of subhanallah, of muntalaq, a starting point for getting closer to Allah. Not this thing that you are complaining against and looking forward into the dunya to help you someone to fulfill your dreams. And this is, the second one is al-ajala, in the sense of hasty. The first one is the sense of being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guiding yourself with the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lati hiya aqwa. The second thing, whatever you see as good in the hand of the people does not mean it's good for them, does not reflect a reality of things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in the Quran that the ungrateful, they have a lot of things. They have abundance of goods. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لَا تَغُرَّنَّكَ الَّذِينَ تَقَلُّبُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فِي الْبِلَادِ. Do not be deluded by the way how you see the disbeliever. They have all this, glamour of the dunya. It's an entertainment for them, enjoyment, fleeting enjoyment. And then they're going to return وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ to hellfire, which you'll be saved from it. So what you see as an apparent is good, so that's a state of istidraj, which make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He said in Surah Al-An'am and also in Surah Al-A'raf, that people, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send them a reminder and they go against it, and then they forget about the reminder, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them everything they desire. قَالَ فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ أَبْوَابَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. We open for them the gates of everything they ask. Someone has a list of 1,000 lines, he will get everything in that list. But the problem is, when they come to this state, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sealed in their hearts so they will not be ungrateful, and then punishment come to take them and see them all of a sudden. فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْلِسُونَ. They are, subhanallah, filled with despair. So what you see in the hand of the people as glamour, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to His Prophet, He said, do not be longing for those who have glamour of the dunya. Indeed, this is a trial for them, but the rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the provision of your Lord, is far better than of what they accumulated. قال ولا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم زهرة الحياة الدنيا لنفتنهم فيه ورزق ربك خير وأبقى. The third thing, it is whatever you see as a state of hardship in the believer, you have to be certain that it's good for you and it's good for them. Why? Because it's not the appearance what define what is the best. It is your relation with Allah what define what is the best. The path that you are in. And this is, subhanAllah, the great lesson that we get from our people of Gaza. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow upon them the favor of the triumph and the nasr. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them the sakina in their heart and pour on them patience and deliver them from all what they have and they are going through. Our people in Gaza, they are teaching us the true, the practical sabr. It's not the theoretical sabr, the true patience. After 9 months, when you reflect on it, as someone said, it's like it may passes for them 9 years of being in this dire situation. So here Allah is teaching us, is a lesson for us. To see your endurance, your perseverance, your patience is not for 1 day or 2 days. And you who are not being afflicted, as they have been afflicted, how much dua you making for them? That's the sabr, that's the reflection of your state. Then, if you have been stopped for after the first month or the second month, making dua and being concerned about them, which is mean that you are being bagged by the state of hasty, by this character, by this ill character that is spoiling all your aqidah from inside. Then you are adhering to the creed of this society and adhering to the path of the shaitan, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. And then what you are praying for yourself, what you are calling for yourself, is actually the opposite of what you think you are doing. فلذلك Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال حتى إذا استيأس الرسل, when the messenger, they came to the point, they surrendered. They said there is no way that these people, they're going to accept the faith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they're going to be overcome. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent His nasr then. Therefore, triumph and help is not in the hand of the people. They would have done it, but in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if it's in the hand of Allah, then it's going to come without doubt for our people of Gaza. And the waiting of the triumph, the waiting of the help is the greatest of the worship. So you see, when you go through hardship, then adhere to it, embrace it as a good thing and be certain. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He's going to give you the power of perseverance. He's going to give you the tranquility into your heart. And He's going to give you that willpower and the drive to help you always have the smile in your face. By avoiding the ill character that we have mentioned. The fourth thing is to really seek to have the akhlaq, the character of forbearance, of deliberation, of patience. The Prophet ﷺ said to Al-Ashaj ibn Qais, you have two qualities that Allah and His Messenger loves. He said, Al-Hilm wal-Anat, forbearance and patience or deliberation. You take your time. You take your time to reflect on the consequences. And that's what is going to help you. That's what is going to eliminate your basir. And to seek this guidance, you seek it in the Quran. When you receive a news, what you're going to do? You don't react. You don't hate. You don't swear. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَأٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. When you have a news, someone brings you the news, you have to verify it. That's the khuluq of al-anat. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, At-ta'anni min Allah. This, the deliberation, this patience is from Allah. Hasty is from the shaitan. He's pushing you to push you into the sin. When you come to the prayer, the Prophet ﷺ told us to have that ta'anni, to have that time, to have that reflection. He said, when you hear the caller calling for the prayer, do not be hasty to the prayer. Take your time. Have the tranquility on you. And whatever you're going to have, to reach with the imam, you pray. And whatever you have missed, you can do it after. Even in the knowledge, take your time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to his Prophet, لا تحرك به لسانك. Don't try to memorize it while it is being revealed to you. Take your time. So this time of deliberation, this time, subhanAllah, the akhlaq, it helps us to counter back the influence of the society and the influence that we have, around us, to be hasty in every aspect. It's so good to be hasty in things, hasty in, doing good. The Prophet ﷺ said, to be hasty in, for example, the sense of urgency to bury someone, to pay your debt. All of that, hasty is good in it. But as a character, as a aqidah, is as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us. And we finish this part with Yusuf alayhi salam. He was longing to come out from the prison. Is out of hasty. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the gift that He had bestowed upon Yusuf to keep him in a prison more years. Why? Because Allah wanted to give him that full formation, full structure in his akhlaq, moral, in his, spirit, in his ways, subhanAllah, of dealing. And among this is to develop in him this sense of anat, which is against the sense of hasty. So there is a big difference after years when the same messenger came from the king. When the messenger came from the king, he told him, go back to your Lord. And years before, he said to the one that he was freed, he said, remember me, mention my name to your Lord. So the first one, it was the aspect of the hasty that was driving Yusuf alayhi salam. If Allah had it to be, then Yusuf alayhi salam, he will be in trouble afterward, because there's people that are going to talk about his honor. But after years, when he has developed that whole spirituality, whole great moral, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guidance and teaching, when he had the invitation, he said no. And this is not like someone free to ask him to mention his name with the Lord, as his Lord, which is the king. No, the king himself sending to him a messenger, قال ارجع إلى ربك. So look the big difference. اذكرني عند ربك, that's the sense of hasty. And the other one, قال ارجع إلى ربك. The other mentioned my name to your Lord. And the other one, he said, go back to your Lord. And this is the difference between the two aspects. And the second aspect, how it has a benefit on Yusuf to become Al-Aziz and to become the one that is empowered on the earth, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى أما بعد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human being in أحسن تقويم. And أحسن تقويم, you find it into the translation, the best of the mold, the best of the stature. But really أحسن تقويم is the fitrah. It is inner nature, the inner disposition. It's the mind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. It's all this ability of perception, which it cannot only stand and be preserved only with the iman. And subhanAllah, someone will have himself or herself to go to the low of the lowest if they spoil this quality of the iman by such ill character that they hasten. And we are, alhamdulillah, in the beginning of the year of Al-Hijr. As a reminder, reminding ourselves and remembering ourselves of this occasion in this new year of Hijrah, it's the new year that helped the believer to come out from the darkness to the light and from the weakness to the empowerment and to have their own state. It is also for the believer to remind ourselves that you have always to be in a state of migration, in a state of hijrah. And the best you can do for yourself is really to look at whatever state you are in, to embrace it and to acknowledge, to help yourself, to convince yourself this is the best state that you are in. It's not statical, but is a starting point to look forward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to have that sense of hasty, which is going to lead you to the evil and to the, wal-iyadu billah, the blindness of your perception, of your insight. But may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to be guided and illuminate our insight and help us to avoid the sense of hasty, to be from those who have the quality of al-hilm wal-anat, and to be guided to the way of Allah and closer and nearer to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا أجمعين وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالإيمان واجعلنا من عبادك الصابرين. اللهم ارزقنا الحلم والأنات يا رب العالمين. اللهم يا كريم ويا رحمن ويا قوي يا عزيز احفظ إخواننا في غزة، اللهم ارحمهم برحمتك، اللهم أنزل عليهم سكينتك، اللهم أنزل عليهم سكينتك، اللهم آمن روعاتهم، اللهم استر عوراتهم، اللهم سد جوعتهم، اللهم دمر أعداءهم يا رب العالمين. إنك على كل شيء قدير وبالإجابة جدير. نعم المولى ونعم النصير. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. وأقم الصلاة يرحمكم الله.